What's going on, everybody? I'm Dane Martinez, the Spittin' Statistician, and welcome to this edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. Today, we're going to talk about Garrett Wilson, the stud wide receiver from Ohio State, and what to expect from him next year. Now, first of all, maybe people think that he was down, had a down year, but no, he was great. He finished with 101 catches, 1,100 plus yards, and 7 touchdowns. He was a top 15 wide receiver in the National Football League, but I actually believe there are still reasons that he could be even better. I mean, first of all, we have seen some reports out there that potentially the Jets are going to draft another wide receiver with the first round inside the top 10. If they did, it would be Arizona wide receiver Ted McMillan. And this is no shade on McMillan. He is a true stud and alpha outside the numbers, big body guy with impressive stats. I think he is going to be the next in a long line of wide receivers recently who have hit the ground running. The only issue is, I don't think the Jets need him at this spot. They do not need to go ahead and add another wide receiver. They already have a stud wide receiver, and it is Garrett Wilson. There are far bigger issues for the Jets to address with that pick or with that draft capital as they move up or down in the draft. It could be offensive line. It could be in the defensive secondary. It could be at quarterback, quite frankly, or they could use that pick and others to go ahead and trade, either move up maybe for a quarterback, move down, accumulate more assets, and go ahead. But I do not think they need to draft another wide receiver at number 7 overall. In fact, here's the thing. I actually believe there was more room for Garrett Wilson to be even better last year. But what happened, in my opinion, was as soon as Davante Adams came in, Aaron Rodgers continued his bromance with Davante Adams. And the stats for Wilson over the first and second half of the season really tell that story. I mean, he only had 6 targets or less twice before week 12, okay? He was getting peppered. He was being featured. He was the true alpha for the Jets in the passing game. But he had 7 or fewer targets in 3 of the last 4 games for the Jets. And Davante Adams truly took over. Same when it comes to his touchdowns. He only had 2 touchdowns in the last 8 games. He had 5 in the first 9. He was a top 20 fantasy wide receiver 4 of the first 9 weeks of the season, including 3 weeks where he was a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. That only happened once in the last 8 weeks. You can see the drop off, but here's the thing. He still amassed a ton of targets in 2024. Garrett Wilson had 153 targets. That was still tied for 4th in the NFL, tied for 4th with big time names like Justin Jefferson and the rookie breakout tight end Brock Bowers, okay? And that is with Davante Adams getting 141 targets, which was tied for 10th in the NFL with Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you look at it like a pie, right? And now the Davante Adams targets are likely gone because as soon as Aaron Rodgers is gone, Davante Adams says that he's going to go. He's intrigued by teams out there on the West Coast, maybe the Chargers, maybe the Rams, if in fact Aaron Rodgers goes there. And there is rumors that if Matthew Stafford is on the move for the Rams, that Rodgers would love to join Los Angeles with McVay, be a savant there and figure it out. And I think Adams would be in tow. But regardless, without Davante Adams, that slice of the pie goes, and the natural reaction is to give more opportunity to Garrett Wilson. Remember, there are other emerging wide receiver options also. Remember, the Jets spent a 3rd round pick last year on Malachi Corley, and we didn't really see much out of Corley, right? They may get a tight end, address that, either in free agency or in the draft with guys like Loveland or Tyler Warren, right? So there are other ways that they are going to add playmakers at offense, right? But obviously in the pass game, it will be Garrett Wilson. And here's the thing, the running back room now is a 2-headed monster at least. Breece Hall is going to get his work. Also will Braylon Allen in his 2nd year. But Garrett Wilson, with increased opportunity, the good part is he's going to be able to work with anyone. There's a lot of thoughts out there on what the Jets are going to do at the quarterback position, right? It doesn't matter. Garrett Wilson has a completely elite skill set. He had 16 contested catches this year. That is good for 5th best in the NFL. So you just put it up. Garrett Wilson is a guy who can go ahead and get it. Do you remember the touchdown grab he made? Absolutely incredible. He also had 400-yard games, and that is even with Davante Adams there for the second half of the season. The 400-yard games was pretty much tops in the NFL. There were 7 guys in the NFL who had 500-yard games. Nobody had more. So he is truly in elite company and has an elite skill set. And here's the thing. There are some reports out there that the Jets are going to go with Tyrod Taylor to be kind of a bridge quarterback for them next year. If that's the case, all sorts of indications are that Tyrod Taylor and Garrett Wilson have a great relationship, that Tyrod is loved in the locker room, especially by Garrett Wilson. If they do bring in a rookie, here's the deal. A rookie quarterback is really only going to pepper and feature Garrett Wilson even more. The analog I would have would be with like the New York Giants, who didn't really have much going on at quarterback. They had a stud rookie wideout in Malik Neighbors. Neighbors wound up with 170 targets. That was second in the league, okay? You could literally see an increase for Garrett Wilson at that level, 160, 170 targets, okay? And here's the other thing. There is another name out there that is starting to be batted about for a potential free agent acquisition for the New York Jets. And it's Justin Fields. And here's the thing. Garrett Wilson went to Ohio State. You know who his quarterback was at Ohio State? It was Justin Fields. They have incredible history together, incredible chemistry together, and that familiarity and experience, just like we talk about Devontae Adams. Remember how he wanted to go to the Raiders? Why? To be with his college teammate Carr, or he wanted to come back to the Jets. Why? To be with a quarterback he was familiar with in Aaron Rodgers. That same kind of familiarity would be there if it were Justin Fields. If it were Tyrod Taylor, I mean, you saw at the end of the season great connections between Tyrod and Garrett Wilson. And if there is some kind of young rookie kid out there, they are going to know where their bread is buttered and go to Garrett Wilson. So like I said, Garrett Wilson was already a top 15 wide receiver with over 100 catches, over 1,100 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I believe next year you are going to see even more from what will now be a third-year wideout out of Ohio State. For me, pencil in Garrett Wilson for over 110 catches. Pencil in Garrett Wilson for over 1,200 yards. And I think it's fair to expect double-digit touchdowns from Garrett Wilson next year. He will be a Pro Bowler. And in the fantasy world, if you draft him as your wide receiver 1, you are going to be excited that you did. Meanwhile, the Jets are going to add, whether it be in free agency or in the draft, and we will talk about it here on Jets Latest. We will find out. We will go digging into crates. We will check out all the beat reports. We will look into the combine, and we will get you ready to understand who are the newest members of the green and white. That's what we will do here on Jets Latest. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribed. This way, every time we go live, you know, and you can get the latest on the Jets, Jets. That's it from me, Dane Martinez, the spitting statistician. We out of here. See you next time on Jets Latest.